And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everybody, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to take a look at a game from Cryptozoic Games that has a space theme, but has play that's unlike anything that I've really played before. That game is Gravwell. Now, Gravwell is a game by Corey Young that plays for 2 to 4 players, and this is a game where you're trying to push and pull and manipulate your way out of a singularity to get to essentially a warp gate at the end of the row, and be the first player to get there, or the closest player at the end of the game, in order to win. So you're going to be drafting cards and playing them, trying to move your way through this singularity or away from the singularity to win. But real quick, why don't we just take a look at what you see inside of this box, or what you get inside of the box. We'll see how the game plays, and then at the end, we'll come back here and we'll get my opinions on Gravwell. So here you can see these set up for Gravwell. We're set up for a 4-player game. In this game, each player controls a spaceship trying to escape from the singularity along this spiral path to get to the warp gate. You're going to do this by playing cards. There are also a couple of neutral ships out here that are going to be kind of interactive with you. You're going to be able to push off of ships, pull other ships, and kind of manipulate their position on the board to hopefully propel yourself out of the singularity and through the warp gate to win the game. And whoever's the furthest along after 6 rounds, or the first person to make it all the way to the warp gate, will win. But how are you going to move? Well, you're going to move using these cards that are over here. And you'll see I have these set up in 12 piles, 2 cards in each pile, 1 face down, 1 face up. There are also a couple of cards that have been removed because there's just too many cards. So a couple of times there's going to be some unknown cards that no one will know what they are. These cards over here are going to have movement on them. They're going to have an element from the periodic table, and correspondingly these elements are also kind of alphabetical. So there's going to be an A, a B, a C, a D, an E, and so forth and so on. All of these greenish-yellow cards will have a movement in the top left, which is 1 in this case, a value, which is AR, or A, the closest to A in the alphabet, and they are going to have a movement type, which in this case is going to be moving you closer to the closest ship to you, towards that closest ship. So, when you play that card, you would move 1 towards the closest ship to you. If that ship is behind you, you will move backwards. If that ship is in front of you, you will move forward, so you're essentially gravitating towards it. If there's an equidistant distance between the 2 ships, 1 in front of you and 1 behind you, you're actually going to move in the direction where there are more ships, because there's more gravity that way. So if there are 2 ships in front of you and 1 behind, you will move forward, whereas if there's 2 behind and 1 in front of you, you'll move backwards. So you'll see there are other cards much like this. This one is DY. It's got 5 movement instead of 1, but it's going to happen after the 1 movement, which means that a ship could theoretically move behind you somehow, and then you end up moving backwards instead of forwards. You have to take timing into consideration here. You'll also see the B, the I, the M, the F, the TH, and the W cards are all movement in this manner, either more or less, TH being 2, but W being 8. So, in addition, there are going to be different types of movement cards. The K card, for example, Krypton, is going to be a repulsor card, and that's indicated in the corner here with 2 value. Instead of moving you towards the closest ship, this is going to move you away from the closest ship, all in the same kind of manner. So, if the closest ship is behind you, you'll move forward. If the closest ship is in front of you, you'll move back. And then it's going to be based on how many ships are in front or behind of you, basically equal to the mass. So if there's more ships behind you, you'll move forward. If there's more ships in front of you, you'll move backwards. So, that's how those are going to work, and you'll see Krypton, Uranium, and Xenon all have that function. We also have Q here. This one is going to be one that attracts all of the other ships on the board. This one has a value of 3. When you play this, every other ship on the board is going to move 3 spaces towards you, starting with the ships that are closer and then moving to the ones that are further away. So, actually, that might be reversed. Either way, you're going to move all the ships towards you 3, and they're going to end up essentially closer to you, and then you can hopefully play off of them in future rounds. So as I said, you're going to draft these cards, and players are going to draft a pile at a time, getting essentially 50% of the information they need to know about these cards, because the other cards beneath them are face down. So at the beginning, you're probably going to want to draft lower valued cards, picking them up into your hand, and essentially you're going to go around the table drafting these cards. So real quick, I'm going to simulate a draft, and we'll see what happens after that. So now we can see each player has their own hand of cards, and each player has also chosen the first card they're going to play for the round. You'll see that you're going to play essentially all of your cards, choosing 1 at a time to play, and then each player will choose simultaneously, flip them over, activate them in alphabetical order closest to A. So each player is going to flip over their first card, and we'll see what happens here. So let's take a look. We've got all of our 4 cards flipped over, and the one closest to A is D. We'll say that this is the blue player. So blue player played D, and they're going to move 5 towards the closest ship. Now you never count ships in the singularity, so they're going to move towards these derelict ships along the outside, moving 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once they're done with that, you'll go to the next person, and the next one in alphabetical order is L. L is going to move 4 spaces towards the closest ship. We'll say that they're we'll say they're black. And they're going to move 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces towards the closest ship. Now they're 1 behind blue. After this, we're going to go ahead and see that Mg is next, magnesium, is next, and they move 10 spaces. That's going to be the yellow player, and they're going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. After that, finally, we're going to move the red player, and the red player moves 8 forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now this is the scenario where you're going to have to start planning a little bit more carefully. The first move isn't going to hurt you too badly, unless you play a repulsor, which really wouldn't make any sense. But you are going to go ahead and choose your first cards. After this, we're going to choose another set of cards, and we'll see how the interaction between other ships works. So give me a second to set that up. We'll be right back. Now we're all set up for the second set of movement in the first round of the game. Each player has chosen their card, so let's reveal them. We see that red chose C, which is just a normal movement card. We'll see blue chose O, which is a movement of 7. We'll see that yellow chose B, a movement of 2. And we will see that our last player, black, chose W, movement of 8. The first one to act is going to be yellow, and yellow is going to move towards the closest ship 2 spaces. Unfortunately for them, that's behind them. So they are going to move backwards 2 spaces, 1, 2. But they can't share a space with red, so they're going to move back a 3rd space. Now we see that red is in much the same dilemma. They chose C, and before that, the player was in front of them. But since that player acted before they did, moving backwards, red is going to move backwards as well, 3 spaces. And they're going to go 1, 2, 3, which actually slides them back 2 more spaces. This is an interesting dilemma because what they could choose to do instead is they could choose to use their emergency stop card to not move backwards. Once per round, you may flip this card over, activate it, and you do not have to take your action. But let's say they decide not to, and they move way back because of their movement. After this, we see that we have O and W, so we're going to move blue first. Blue also moves backwards, and they're going to move all the way back to the singularity. Finally, we have our black player moving, and they also move backwards. So everyone made the wrong choice this round. They did not anticipate what other players would do, and everyone ended up moving backwards. Now let's take a look at one last round to see how this works. Okay, once again, we've all chosen our cards, and we're going to flip them over, and we'll see how they resolve. So, the closest one to the beginning of the alphabet, in this case, is going to be IR, Iridium, which is a 6 movement forward for blue, and they will move forward 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, now we're going to go on, and we're going to see that from IR, we're going to move to Q, Q being next, and that means that red is going to pull everybody 3 spaces towards them. 1, 2, 3, they're going to move beyond. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and they're going to move forwards, and even the derelict ships are going to move closer. So 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. So everybody shifts 3 closer to that player. After we've resolved that, we're going to go on to S, and the S player is going to move. Now, S is black, so black is going to move towards the closest player, and again, gets pulled right back into the singularity. Finally, we're going to go on to V, and V is the yellow player. Yellow, again, is ahead of everybody, so they're going to move backwards. Now, this is not always the scenario. Of course, I'm choosing these cards semi-randomly, but you're going to try and pick the best card from your hand based on your position and on where you think people are going to move before you. If you have an earlier card, you can be a little bit more sure of what's going to happen, whereas if you have a later card in the alphabet, closer to the end, it's going to change the board status quite a bit before you have a chance to move, and you may have to predict what other players are going to do. So, I think this illustration where people are moving backwards a lot is a good illustration of not choosing the correct cards. If you're ahead of everyone and you're playing an early card, the odds are you're going to be moving backwards unless you're really close to one of these derelict ships. If you're behind everybody and you play a late card, you could end up in a scenario where somebody has moved backwards and is standing right in front of you, forcing you to either move forward, or someone has moved backwards and is now right behind you, pushing you back. And so you have to be careful. Playing these kind of early cards is more safe. Playing the later cards is a little bit more troublesome, and the middle cards are, of course, middling. So it's all about kind of minimizing risk, but we'll get more of that in the future, or in the little bit later portion of the video where I sum up my thoughts. Anyhow, just know that you're trying to, after 6 full rounds of play, meaning that you're going to play all 6 of your drafted cards, then go through again and draft, of course, from loser to winner drafting cards, and see who gets the furthest along this spiral by the end of the game. Or, if somebody makes it to the warp gate, that player will be the winner. Well, there you have it. That is Gravwell by Corey Young. Now, this game is not one that I would call polarizing, but I think it's one that's going to have a large constituent of people that do not like it for some very obvious reasons. Now, the game is not devoid of strategy. A couple of people in my group feel that the game is completely devoid of strategy, and I will not say that. As a matter of fact, I actually enjoyed my plays of the game. But there is a significant luck factor to it, or a significant bluffing and reading factor to the game. However, I don't think those are the most important things to pay attention to here. One of the most important things to pay attention to is that card draft. When you're drafting, you will know at least, actually more than, 50% of the cards you're going to have to play in a round. You're going to draft 6 cards total. You're going to know exactly what 3 of them are. In addition to that, you have one emergency stop that I showed you that you can use each round. So 4 out of 6 of your cards, you're going to know that you either have to play or can stop. The other 2 are a little bit of a wild card to you, but hopefully you can, figure out in the other portion of the important part of the game how to use them to your advantage. And that is, how do I minimize my risk each time I'm playing a card? And this is probably the most important part of the game. How do I play a card that minimizes my risk? If I'm way out in front, I'm clearly not going to want to play a card that's going to move me towards the closest ship. So maybe it's best for me to repulse away from the closest ship, unless I'm by one of those derelict ships, in which case, of course, maybe I do want to move towards them, especially since they don't move on their own and they're kind of a stationary factor. Now, that could get messed up by somebody else playing a card that moves things closer, or somebody else moving really far and shooting up ahead of you so that now you're pushing away from them, or whatever the case may be. Yes, there are cards that can mess you up, but the game, in my opinion, is about minimizing your risk, choosing the right card. Now, with all that said, this still isn't a game that's great for me. I like it, it's fine. I'll play it, but it's a little bit more random than I'd like it to be. Yes, I can minimize my risk, but there's still that huge luck factor of maybe I drafted a couple of cards, 2 cards, that I really can't use and they're going to mess me up for a lot of the turn. Or maybe, even though I played my lowest card and I played it safe, somebody else had a lower card that I didn't know about because I didn't see it during the draft, and there's just nothing you can do about it at times. Sometimes you are going to move backwards and it's just not going to work out in your favor. And if you don't like the fact that you cannot plan for everything, this is not the game for you. So, as I said, really not my style of game, one that I did enjoy my plays of, but one that's not going to hit the table a lot for me. So, if you don't like that luck, probably don't check out Gravwell, but if you like trying to figure out what other players are going to play, if you like minimizing your risk, definitely check it out. That's Gravwell from Cryptozoic and Corey Young.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.